Well, good afternoon from Dubai. Thank you very much for joining from all around the places. I know there have been people registering from all around the world. Thank you very much for taking the time to join our webinar this afternoon. Maybe it's not afternoon at your end. However, I'd like to welcome you all for our webinar, which is about assessing competency frameworks using HR analytics. So I'm pretty sure that competency frameworks are already well-known tools or methods for everyone that has been working in HR for a while now. It has been like a cornerstone of so many other HR disciplines. However, what's very new about the webinar today is bringing in the statistics methods of HR analytics to assess the efficiency and the effectiveness of a competency framework. So thank you very much for joining. I hope that this hour would be beneficial. I thank you for your trust in advance. Please, at any point in time, if you have a question, please feel free to pop it into the chat. Would be more than happy to cater for the answer whenever this is possible. And as we start, a little bit of an introduction about our company, Merck Training and Consulting. For those of you whom we didn't have the chance to serve before or to know about us before, our company has been established in 1958, so it has been 63 years now that Merck has been serving clients in Africa, in Asia Pacific, in Middle East, and in Europe with its training and consulting services. We take pride of having all our consultants to be full-time employees dedicated for the company. We have now in our library more than 250 ready-made courses, aside from the in-house customized courses that we offer for our clients. And these courses fall under 31 categories. They are they have been crafted based on the expertise of our consultants and based on the evolution of the market needs. Our experience with online learning has been expanding as well from a venture since 2011 until it became our cornerstone in 2019, especially 2020 with the pandemic that prevented us from meeting with people face to face. So we are very happy to share with you as well that in 2020, we have delivered more than 1,200 training days in virtual instructor-led live format, which is an achievement we are very proud of, and we are very humbled to have, given the trust of our clients. Certainly, the courses can be offered in public format or in in-house format, the way you would like to, or you find more suitable for your organization. Our company, as the video, if you had as you had the chance maybe to see it, hires consultants and considers them part of family. So I'm very proud also to be a part of this family. A little bit of background about myself. My name is Rabia. I'm Lebanese, working with Merck since like 3 years now as a senior HR consultant and leadership development consultant. A little bit of academic background. I hold a master's degree in education, another one in HR and training, and I'm pursuing currently my diploma, my level 7 diploma with CIPD. My previous jobs include L&D, talent development, and teaching HR in universities for mainly for master's program, postgraduate programs. So that's a little bit about like a background about myself and about the company. And I can see that more people are joining. So far, we have 25 people in the room. That's great. In fact, I'm very happy that this topic is of interest for everyone. So, without further ado, let me a little bit go through an introduction and maybe to bring everyone up to speed about what a competency framework is. And I know that many of you have been working with some recently. So, a competency framework, by definition, is the set of core behavioral and technical competencies of an organization. Usually, these competencies are very well defined. They are written and crafted in a way that makes them really observable. They are also defined with different levels of proficiency so they can suit all levels of employees, whether a frontliner or an executive. And mostly, and the most important about competencies is that every competency, in addition to the definition that we write specifically for, the competency has key behavioral indicators for each level of employees, so it can be really measured with a high level of accuracy without ambiguity in the definition and without, or not without, but at least with a minimal bias from the assessor. So that's the competency framework. Another thing that we need to know about competencies is that for every unique job in your organization, you usually assign a set of competencies. And this set of competency also comes with the corresponding levels. So a leader, for example, would get a set of competencies like business acumen, strategic thinking, developing people, financial expertise, business development, supply chain and logistics. All these competencies might be under the job of a general manager. And then each competency is assigned a level depending on how much this holder of the unique job requires to demonstrate this competency at which proficiency level. So, as a simple example, if project management is the competency, then you can see that there is a definition first for the competency that you can see right here. You can also see that there is a name assigned to it, which usually becomes part of the company dictionary. And most importantly, there are proficiency levels. Sometimes they are 4, sometimes they are 5, depending on how much levels and how much expertise you need in the organization. And for each proficiency level, there are key behavior indicators that allow us to measure with high level of accuracy whether this person fits the required level of competence or can demonstrate this competency at the required level. Now, that's very good, that's very beautiful, but the main thing or the main question remains why? Why would a company spend so much time, so much effort, so much money, so much energy on going and crafting a dictionary of maybe 100, 200 competencies, going to consultancy boutiques or consultancy firms, asking them to come in, analyze their workforce, analyze their job descriptions, crafting these competencies, charging millions for it. Why is it done? It's not like you would like to have your competency framework as another book or another decoration on your library. As I said before, a competency framework is a cornerstone for so many HR initiatives, so many HR disciplines that we have right now. And here I can just share few examples of it. First of all, a competency framework can be used to select candidates and to assess candidates using competency-based behavioral interviewing skills. And the aim for that is to increase the percentage of top performers in the organization. So you will see that every discipline have at least one KPI, which is very measurable, that would measure the efficiency of the competency framework. So if my competency framework is not helping me to hire more top performers, then it's not doing its job. My competency framework, since it includes some core behavioral competencies, then for sure it's helping to build the culture of the organization. And when we say the culture of the organization, then when employees have a cultural fit, they are highly engaged. So the competency framework is used to build a culture of highly engaged employees and to make sure that our employees are continuously engaged because they are going to be more productive. A competency framework will help me in training, will help me in identifying training needs, and help me in allocating the right program, or help me to design the right individual development plan for my high potential employees. And that's why it aims to increase the performance level. So if the performance level is not increasing, then there might be a problem with my competency framework. Competency framework also help in succession planning. So from one job to another, you can always tell uh, what are the levels required and what a person needs to develop further in his or her competency profile so they can be ready to assume a higher role. And this will create business sustainability. So I need to make sure that my competency framework secures a certain percentage of ready now successors of my key positions or the positions at risk. A competency framework also can impact the performance management through higher rates. So I would like to see that my employees are getting more productive through my performance management, where the, the assessment itself takes into consideration the competencies per the job. And also my competency framework can contribute to terminating the people who are not performing. So this way, it will help me to reduce the number of low performers or the rate of low performers in my organization. So as you can see, there are business reasons for designing and developing and adopting a competency framework and making it as a, uh, a tool available for all the HR disciplines, and all these disciplines, they would reflect whether my competency framework is good or not through some KPIs like the ones you can see on the screen. So now how we can tell about that? How do we know whether the correct use of our competency framework is helping us in recruiting top performers? Certainly, this is not uh, obvious per se, or this is not something that we just go and decide on by hunch. When we would like to go and justify the return on investment on such a huge project like a competency framework, we better have some more solid proofs. So how we can do that? We can do it through the power of HR analytics. And I say the power because we will explore that the data has like infinite number of ways to be used to justify how the competency framework is working, but more importantly, to rectify the competency framework and to give us exact and specific recommendations on how to make our competency framework more effective and let it impact the business even further. In this course or in this webinar, I would like to address specifically one HR discipline, which is performance management. Not because the others are less relevant, but because of lack of time. We will not be able to cover how HR analytics would help in all these disciplines. But I chose performance because the example itself is very interesting and it can directly impact the organization. So, what happens usually? And how we consider leadership competencies versus performance. Many of us right now in your performance management systems, you have sections based on which you assess performance. So performance is majorly about business objectives, but also about developing others, about developing self, and about extra initiatives or long-term contribution for the organization. And certainly all this is aggregated into an overall ranking, maybe a percentage, maybe an ordinal ranking that you have, like meet expectation, below expectation, significantly above expectation, the way you would like to have. So let me consider the following scenario. Let's say that I would like to assess the competencies of the competency framework of my leaders. And for that sake, I will assume that my leadership competency framework has 6 leadership competencies. All of them are assigned to any person in the organization that manages others. And these competencies are strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, innovation, effective communication, business acumen, and drive for results. I'm sure if I ask any one of you, do you doubt that any of those competencies is unnecessary for a leader? And certainly everyone will say, no way. They are all absolutely important for a leader. But the question is, do I have a proof about this? Or is it just because strategic thinking has become a buzzword? Or is it because now is the area of technology and innovation is very important? Yeah, they are very big words. But if they helped others, would that really mean that they will help you? If they helped others, would that really mean that um, you need them right now, or are they priority for your business right now? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the nice to have, it's about the priorities and about the practicality of things. And you will see soon enough how the HR analytics is going to help me decide on which of my competencies are the most important priorities to invest in. So these are the leadership competencies I am assuming for my organization. On the other hand, I will also assume that I have a performance management system with those 4 components with this specific statistical distribution of percentages. So every manager will contribute to business objectives, and the weight of business objectives is 60%, but he would also contribute to people development and developing his team or developing others in the organization has a weight of 20%. I would also need leaders in my organization to develop themselves and will give them 15% of their assessment based on that. And in case they go the extra mile, the above and beyond achievement, and they do some long-term contribution, beyond their scope of work, I would give room for that as well. So that's a typical performance management system to your right, and to your left you have a set of leadership competencies that are very well known. Certainly every competency has its definition, has its levels, and has key behavioral indicators written by level, as I shared with you in the project management example before. So now the question: how did you go and decide on these 6 leadership competencies? What happens usually is either you have a hunch as an HR director, or you have been in the company for so long, so you know the weaknesses, and you advise on the competencies accordingly. Or you would go and run some surveys internally to understand what are the most impactful aspects of leadership, what aspects of leadership the employees appreciate the most. That's very good. That's very important. It's the beginning. But now, let's assume that your competency framework has been in action for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. I guess it's about time to step back, analyze the data, and really take a deep dive on what competency to remove, what competency to add, what key behavioral indicators are not really worth evaluating. Because all of this is effort, and evaluating all these will take so much time from you. So you need to make sure that you really be careful with the resources that you have and the way you use them as well. So how to evaluate? Certainly, as I said, here we're only evaluating a competency framework from a performance management angle, although we can do it from many other HR disciplines, as I shared before. When you design your competency framework, unintentionally, you draw a hypothesis. You start with the premise that the competencies that you are choosing are impacting positively your overall performance. So as you can hear people saying, we hope that as the ranking of our competencies go higher, the performance will improve. So you would expect, if you have 2 leaders in comparison, someone who scores 3 on each of the competencies will do much better than someone who scores 1 on each of the competencies. That's your intention, and that's what you wish for, in fact. So what you're thinking, although you might not be aware of it, is that you assume that any increase in the competency ranking will generate definitely an increase in the performance rating. So that's your wish. That's what you aim for when you link those together. But how can you know? You need to start, first of all, collecting this data and putting it next to each other's to make sense. Now, the most famous sources or the most practical sources of measuring competencies are 360-degree multi-rater feedback that a company does once a year, and based on which they assess their leaders, they develop their development plans, they craft their training plans, they set their succession plans, and they make sure that they provide whatever necessary for the leaders to meet the required competencies. On the other hand, to measure the performance component, you just go and collect it from the performance management system. So as you can see, I am collecting data from measuring the leadership competencies from one end to have numbers to analyze. And I am also collecting the rate of performance of the managers or the leaders from the performance management system. And then I need to put this data together and start torturing this data through my analytical methods in order for the data to inform me, to tell me how my competency framework is performing. So that's it for the thinking about it. Let me share an example. So these are my 5 leadership competencies that I have in my framework, for example, for all the leaders in the organization. And let's assume that I have a number of candidates that I am evaluating. Those number of candidates would be my sample. I don't have to take all the data. Maybe all the data is not available. Maybe not every manager has had the chance to get the multi-rater filled in correctly. Maybe someone joined after I did the multi-rater, but at least I'm taking those 10 or 11 values to make sure that I have a representative sample of my population, which are the leaders in the organization. So if this is leader 1, then leader 1 scores 4 on drive for results, scores 2 on strategic thinking, 3 on emotional intelligence, 2 on innovation, and 1 on business acumen. And all this ranking is out of 5. So I'm ranking my competencies out of 5. While another leader, you can see it's 4, 5, 3, 3, 4. So in fact, as you can compare leader 1 and leader 2 in my example here, have different rating of the competencies where leader 2 scores much higher. Now let's look at the performance of each of them. The overall performance of leader 1 is 91%, while the overall performance of leader 2 is 96%. So one would stop and ask, is it really worth it, all these competencies, for a 5% increase in performance? That's a very important question. Now, another note that you can say is on this leader right here. He scores better on every competency than leader 2. And then he has scored 98%. Is this 2% of difference important? Where does it come from? Does it come from drive for results? And how come that at lower emotional intelligence, he can score higher? So many questions. And if you have so many numbers, then the questions will be more and more. How you can resolve this is through data analytics, where you will have the main tools to take care of all these questions one by one, and then being able to rectify and improve your competency model or competency framework accordingly. So let's assume that this is the data we have. As you can see, for every leader, I have business objectives ranked. Okay, I have personal development rating, I have people development rating, and long-term contribution, all rated together so they can form a good fit for model. If we remove the HR vocabulary and focus now on what would a data analyst perceive out of my dreams and promises from my competency model. A data analyst will come and tell you would need to understand the relationship between performance and competencies. So in my language, you're telling me I have a dependent variable which is continuous because it can take any number between 1 and 100 or even more. And this is overall performance. So this is your dependent variable. And what does it depend on? It depends on the leadership competencies, which were ranked on a scale from 1 to 5, and which I will treat here as continuous as well. So are these competencies contributing to the performance or not? In other words, if each of those go plus 1 unit, would overall performance go up, and by how much and why? In analytics vocabulary, the first step is to test whether there is a relationship between those variables. And there where you use a very simple yet nice, effective tool to start exploring relationship, which is a test that we call a Pearson correlation test. Now, I apologize because it's going to be a little bit on the math end right now, but certainly I will try to make it as simple as possible. So when we say correlation, we just want to check whether those variables behave with each other's in a similar manner. So in other words, we would like to know what does it happen when drive for results go up? Would overall performance go up or go down? And vice versa. We would like to know, would overall performance and emotional intelligence move the same way or in a different way? There's a very famous there's a very famous example that we share about correlation is how does the temperature and the sales of ice cream move together in a positive manner. So in other words, whenever the temperature goes higher, the sales of ice cream in a certain country go higher. Now, this only describes that the variables are moving together in a similar fashion. Or for example, we would say that the longer this webinar is, the shorter your attention will be. So this is an inversely uh, related kind of variable that we call a negative correlation. The higher the time I spend, the lower your attention will become. So correlation by itself does not explain why this is happening or does not uh, create any kind of causality between the two variables. So it will not tell you that performance increases because of drive for result increase. It's not going to happen this way, but it will tell you that there is a relationship and it will invite you to investigate further. So if you would like to start looking at correlation, you take this data, you insert it in a statistical analysis software like Excel, like SPSS, like SAS, like any kind of those very famous statistical tools, and you will get a Pearson correlation table that would look like this one. Now, what I did here is trying to correlate the business objectives, which is the 60% of the overall performance, with the competencies of leadership that we have seen before. So you can see I have drive for results, I have strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, business acumen, innovation, and then I have the scores for the other performance sections, but I'm now only interested to explore the correlation right here. Now that's your first step towards evaluating those 5 competencies, whether they are related to business objectives or not. So as you can see, we have very nice values. 0.718 is greatly high. So we can say that we have some competencies like business acumen, strategic thinking, and drive for results that are highly positively correlated with business objective. Now, this is a nice start. It doesn't say anything. Emotional intelligence, for example, is significantly correlated, but in a small way. Innovation has a medium positive correlation with business objective because the value here is 0.567. Now, the most important aspect of analytics here is those 2 stars that you can see next to each correlation factor, because this is what we call significance. And to put it in simple words, this confirms that the correlation we assumed is not due to chance. There is a reason for it, and invites us further to explore the relationship between the variables. So here you go. This is your first analytical test to competency framework. Now, God forbid you spent $1 million on designing this competency framework, and then you come to find that there is no stars right here, and then you discover that the competency of strategic thinking is not correlated to business objectives. It means you have just wasted 20% of your time on designing this competency framework on a competency that is not contributing to performance. Now you will go and remove it from your competency framework, and you can also explore further how you can align this. So this is the first analytical tool that I like to share with you, which is the Pearson correlation. And it answered us a very basic question. Do these variables move positively together? Now, if you had a negative sign right here, then you would have said that as business objective go up, emotional intelligence goes down. That would be also a very interesting finding. So here you go. We started collecting some insights from our competency framework. A more important question, however, is we would like to explore something else. I would like to know how much overall performance increase when the drive for result increase. I would like to know if there is a causality between those 5 competencies and overall performance. In other words, am I sure that these competencies influence the performance or not? And here comes another kind of analytics method that also is very useful, and it helps you predict performance of employees, which we call a multiple linear regression. So the multiple linear regression, what it does, it tries to fit the variables, the independent variables, which are the competency rankings, with the dependent variable, which is the overall performance. And it again starts with kind of a hunch, with an assumption that we call hypothesis. We are assuming that the development of these competencies is going to impact positively the performance. Now, how do we know whether this is true or not? We go to the software, we tell the software to analyze the relationship through what we call a linear regression between uh, the five competencies as independent variables with the rankings that we collected, and we go to the dependent variable to assign it as the overall performance. Now, what's nice, the software will tell us again through this value of significance that you can see right here, that our hypothesis, our theory, is not happening by chance, and there is, in fact, a causality between the five uh, competencies from one end and the performance from another end. But by how much? That's also very important to know. In fact, in this example, we can state that a change of 1 unit in performance ranking will change the performance overall by 32.6%. We are very sure of that to a very, very nice degree, which is more than 99%. And we can tell this through this coefficient here, which is the regression coefficient, the adjusted R square, that will tell us how much variance in the dependent variable, which is the overall performance, is explained by the predictors, which are my competencies. As you can see, the analysis becomes really straightforward, and then you don't have to go and assume anything. You just have the data to speak on your behalf. Now, however, we know that the five competencies are fit together. We would like to check further whether one of these competencies is better than the other. And there is a very nice method to that, again using regression, that is called the stepwise linear regression. Now, what does it do? It takes the five competencies all together and starts playing around with them and checking the impact of them on the change in the overall performance. And what happened here when I ran the analysis, in fact, the software removed two of my competencies. The software removed the strategic thinking and removed emotional intelligence and kept only the three competencies, which are drive for results, business acumen, and innovation. And what does this tell me? It tells me that the main three competencies in my competency framework are those three. So what does this mean practically? I would like to wrap up with some findings and recommendations from the analytics. First of all, the analysis confirmed that my framework is positively related to employee performance. This means that the choice of competencies for our leaders is fit for purpose. If I didn't have a correlation, then one of the competencies has to be removed. However, the finding also tells me that not all of my competencies contribute equally to the performance of my leaders, as we saw in the multiple linear regression. And therefore, what would be the recommended actions? First of all, when I develop my leaders, choosing the training priorities will have to focus on innovation, business acumen, and drive for results, not on strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. The second thing is I need to go to the definition of emotional intelligence and strategic thinking and further explore the behavioral indicators in order to redefine them. Maybe by redefining the key behaviors, I will get a better link with the performance itself. And finally, we might end up by removing these two competencies, the strategic thinking and emotional intelligence, totally from the leadership framework, because I will judge them as nice to have, but with no added value whatsoever. So as you can see, by collecting the data and start just by doing a couple of tests, I was able to check which of these competencies are more important than the others for me, which ones I would need to remove, which ones I would need to revisit or reconsider. And this way, I will save much time in measurement, in training, in development, in finding successors for people, in recruiting, and in also assessing poor performers, all the disciplines that we have discussed so far. So that was it for the webinar today. I hope you got some insights. I hope you are more interested to know about the power of HR analytics. If you don't mind, I would allow a couple of minutes for your questions. If you have anything to ask, if you have anything to inquire about before closing the session, please feel free. I'll give you the opportunity to jot down your questions in the chat box, so this way I can tackle them as well.
Thank you, brother.
Most welcome.
Actually, important training, and every single thing that you have mentioned is really important, and we need to go deep with. Uh, my question is it recorded? Is this session recorded?
Yes, absolutely. The session is recorded and it's going to be released on our website. You can check it on merck.com/webinars. And if you follow our YouTube channel, whenever it is posted, you can receive a notification as well.
Thank you, brother.
Sure.
Rabia, I have a question.
Please, Said, go ahead.
Yeah, so uh, obviously this type of analysis depends on the results that you collect at the beginning, and there are certain and different ways to collect these results. One of them is are surveys, right? Now, surveys are generally known to be a weak way of assessment. And for example, you do the analysis, you figure out that, for example, certain competencies are not helping you with your business objectives, for example. How can you avoid that issue, right? With the surveys being weak as an analysis tool, because you will be depending a lot on these results with your analysis, and then you will be informing decision. But then the tool that you use for assessment is not a very strong tool. So how can you create that balance?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't really agree that surveys are weak analysis or weak data collection tools. I would say that there are so many weak surveys in the market because when the survey is designed correctly and targeting the right audience, it's gonna be effective, and it's very important measure. And by all means, you can always assess the validity and the internal consistency of your survey using methods like factor analysis and and other reliability tests like Cronbach Alpha to make sure that your survey is well designed.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question. Thank you, Rabia.
Sure, most welcome.
Can I have a question, please?
Please.
Yes, thank you for this informative webinar. It's really very interesting. My question about, is there a complete course covering the topic of this seminar?
Yes, in fact, by the end of month of June, we are running a course called Certified HR Analyst. It's a 5-day course where we cover all these topics in very deeply with hands-on tools and exercises that would help participants to explore all these analytical tools within HR setup. We share, for example, how we apply it in employee engagement, how to assess employee engagement surveys, how to predict turnover of employees, how to understand the link between training and motivation, and so many things. It's a 5-day course, and maybe I can send you via email a link for it. So if you'd like to register, you'd be my guest.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Yeah, please. Thank you very much. Could you repeat the name of the two tests for checking integrity of the survey?
Yes, there is a test called Cronbach Alpha. Okay, I'll write them down here because the name is a little bit is a little bit difficult.
Vector or something, right?
Cronbach Alpha and factor analysis.
Vector
These are
analysis.
couple of tests that you can do to assess the internal reliability
And the
of your surveys.
effectiveness of the survey.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, sure. So again, please allow me, as I said, to mention again, if you would like to know more about this topic and train yourself on this topic, we have some courses upcoming for that. We have a course called Certified HR Analyst. If you would like to know more about how to design and develop competency frameworks, we have also courses on a certification on developing and implementing competency frameworks. There is also an upcoming course which is on the training and development. It's called Certified Training and Development Professional that you can attend. I know some of the participants now have already attended. Suad, if I'm not mistaken, from Oman, has attended a while ago. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I will drop down in the chat box my email as well. So this way you can stay in touch with me. I'll drop the Merck website in case you miss it, and with the webinars as well, if you would like to go check the recording of previous webinars. And this is my mobile number in case you have any question. You can just give me a call or text me. And for those who are LinkedIners, this is how I write my name on LinkedIn. Please feel free at any point in time to stay in touch and connect. I'm sorry, I wrote my email incorrectly. There is a C missing. I'm gonna write it again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Risk. Can you just
Great.
please, can we have a copy of this presentation as a PDF or something, in an email, or a registered email?
To be honest, Imad, we're not sharing the material. However, you can watch the recording whenever it is available on the website. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Sure, most welcome. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining. It has been such a pleasure. And please stay safe. Wash your hands. Keep social distancing. Sanitize your hands. Get vaccinated if you can. And may God protect us all and keep us safe. Thank you very much and enjoy your afternoon.
Merck.com